Hey guys, what's going on? It's Mike Perry from Skill of Strength here with Coach Steve Sheppard. Guys, we're going to go over the basics of the kettlebell push press, specifically the double kettlebell push press. Now, this is not a tutorial, okay guys? This is not a how-to. This is some basic tips on how to troubleshoot the double kettlebell push press. Now, there are some prerequisites we need to talk about here. One is a solid double kettlebell front squat. Why? Because that is the pattern that starts the push press. If you cannot do that appropriately and with quality form and technique, this is not for you. Second, we want to make sure that you own a nice groove of a double overhead kettlebell press. We want to make sure that you can get there, you have the adequate mobility, and we want to make sure that you're doing it pain-free. Okay, so those are the biggies. Now, what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to start off with some very, very simple drills. Now, we just talked about the double kettlebell front squat being sort of a precursor or prerequisite. We're going to take that and we're going to apply it right to the push press. So Steve's going to come on over and he's going to just get the bells in the rack position. Steve knows what he's doing. Now, we have set this height so it's roughly the depth of Steve's first dip, okay? So what do we mean by that? The beginning of the push press is essentially a very, very similar pattern to a double kettlebell front squat. So I'm going to have Steve, he's just going to find his squat depth, he's going to take a seat, okay? He's just relaxing, okay? Now, we're not unloading, we're not changing our spine positioning, but if you'll notice, he's sitting down. He cannot create power from here because his weight's in his butt. So what do we need to do? We need to find that positioning where he can weight shift slightly forward. He can find a nice sort of shin angle that we're looking for, where his weight loads into his feet. From here, guys, he's going to be light. His butt's going to be touching the plates very, very lightly. And I always say pretend that there's a tack there. We don't want to obviously sit on the tack. And then I'm just going to have him stand up, and he's going to lock everything out. Boom. He's going to come back down. He's just going to do a light tap, and then come on up. And I'm just going to have him do 10 of those. Guys, what are we looking for here? We're looking for a nice rib cage position. We're looking for the elbows to stay relatively close to the rib cage, okay? What we don't want to see is when we dip down, the elbows fly off the ribs, okay? That's not a great way to translate power. But what we're looking for is just a whole bunch of reps, guys. I wrote an article a long time ago on how a barbell front squat can help you with this. It's probably still on the Strong First site, but this should be a nice sort of vertical torso, and we need to make sure that this is going to replicate the squat pattern. So Steve's probably sick of doing those, so just go ahead, Steve, and stand up. Now, I'm going to slide this out of the way, guys. Now, in order to find that positioning, we're going to perform some isometric holds right at that sweet spot. But listen, we're taking the training wheels off. He's got nothing to tap to. So we're going to have him find the positioning and hang out there. Boom. Hang out there for a little bit, guys. Granted, it's a ballistic movement, but we can get a lot out of this positional work. And then stand up. Come on up, boom. And let's just do 5 of those, Steve. And awesome. Now, guys, my push press and Steve's push press are going to look different. Okay, different limb lengths. Steve has very, very long femurs compared to his tibia. We always joke about that in the gym. But he's going to be a little bit more hingy than most. Okay, so that's okay. So we perform an isometric hold into that positioning. You're starting to warm up a little bit, aren't you?
Yeah.
And then you just stand up tall. So just do one more for me, okay? And then awesome. Boom. Awesome. You can take a little bit of a break. Now, guys, the side view here is important, right? Because the initial dip is going to be a little bit more squatty. So we're going to sit back, okay? It's going to be a little bit more squatty. Our weight distribution is going to be in the middle of the foot. If we're too far on our heels, we're going to hinge. If we're too far on our tippy toes, we're going to not allow ourselves to kind of recruit our posterior chain. So we want to find that sweet spot, okay? So once we're there, weight is distributed, we're going to move on to the next correction here. So what Steve's going to do is Steve is going to, he's going to finish his hips and he's just going to perform a partial press, okay? So he's going to dip, he's going to go in that iso hold, and he's going to come on up, finish and press, and then come back down, okay? And then we'll see, just do 5 of those, bud. Now, guys, listen, Steve's a beast. Steve can do this with double 48s. We're just training with double 12s today, just to make sure that, that we're getting the groove down, okay? Boom. Okay, so there's your partial press. So what this allows us to do is to start to understand the timing. The hips finish, and guys, when the hips finish now, we're gonna have Steve speed this up. Once we finish the hips, we're gonna blast the elbows off of the rib cage and into that partial press position. So we are using a tiny bit of hip drive to get those kettlebells up. So let's go iso hold and just finish quickly and then a little pop. Yes, awesome. And then just do 2 more of those. Boom. Yep. Very cool. Now, good, you can take a little break. So guys, granted, again, it is a ballistic movement, but when in doubt, get into the position that you need and do some isometric holds, guys. I want you to feel where you need to be. There's a lot of value in owning positional stability, okay? So what we're gonna do now, how you doing? You good? Yep. All right, we're gonna need a protein shake after this. So Steve's gonna do the partial press. He's gonna start in that iso hold. He's gonna do a partial press. And now what we're gonna work on is the catch or the second dip. So now we're gonna let gravity come into play, and once those kettlebells kind of hit the ribs, that's our cue to sink back down. So we're gonna start putting this all together now, all right? So come on over. We go into our sort of our iso hold. This is our home base. And guys, you do this with a pair of double 24s, 28s, it's gonna be some work. So he's gonna pop the hips, partial press, and then re-dip. Yes. So iso hold, pop, partial press, and then boom. Awesome. You can even hold this partial press a little bit longer. Go ahead, Steve, and just pop and hold, boom, exactly. So you can take a little break. So one of the things that I like to do here, guys, is I'm gonna just do a little demo. Is look, you can even break this down even more. You can be here, partial press into your dip. Okay? That's just a little way to work on the timing. And guys, timing is one of those things that's overlooked. We talk about it a lot in the swing. And with the kettlebell swing, right? We want the hips to finish. Once we finish the hips, our elbows blast off of our rib cage, we come on up. And then as we come back down, elbows reconnect with the rib cage, and that is sort of our cue to sit back into our swing. It's the same thing on the push press, right? Once we get up here, we're here, boom. Once the elbows hit the ribs, okay? Partial press, okay? Now, the last thing we're gonna do is we're just gonna get some timing, okay? We're gonna work on bumping and bumping. And this is a drill that Brett Jones showed me a long time ago when I was training for my level 2 a long time ago. And I cannot take credit for this, so this is something that Brett showed me. But what we're gonna work on is some basic timing. So we're gonna get the kettlebells into the positioning, we're gonna dip, drive, boom. And it's almost similar to the old school Viking push press that Kenneth J had put out a long time ago. So Steve, let's clean it up. So we're gonna dip and bump, dip and bump. And there's gonna be a nice cadence to it, okay? Let's see what you got, buddy. Dip, bump, dip, bump, boom. Okay. Try to be a little bit more seamless on the catch. So once the elbows hit, boom, just a little bit more on the boom. That's it. Awesome. So guys, thanks bud. Very, very simple cue to make sure that you're getting it. And it's gonna smoke the quads, okay? It's gonna be fantastic for the abs. We're not gonna get into all the specifics of this, but when the elbows sort of hit the rib cage, you have to brace and you have to zip up because your whole body absorbs the load. Now the last correction that I'll give you, the last cue is, when the elbows hit the ribs, we want to make sure that we're not spilling out and going into a big anterior tilt. We want to build the suspension, and this is what we're looking for. It's not a swing, it's the beginnings of kettlebell front squat, so it is different. And one other thing, the initial dip is going to look different than the second dip once you start to go heavy, right? So if you dip down and then you pop up and you've got a big, big load, when those kettlebells reconnect, your second catch may be a little bit more knee dominant, which is fine, no big deal, but just make sure that you're not throwing your back underneath the bus, okay? So the weight distribution in the initial dip is kind of through the middle of the foot, very, very similar to a double kettlebell front squat. That second dip can be a little bit more knee dominant, especially as you start to go heavier. So guys, try these drills. Even if you haven't tried the double kettlebell push press, these drills are going to be fantastic for cleaning up your coordination, your timing. Double 12s can be a little bit of work, right?
Yeah.
And if you do it right, guys, we talk about rack carries a lot, right? And we talk about doing loaded carries. Guys, this position when done right, with a nice slow loaded carry is fantastic. And don't forget to do your isometric work before you add in loaded carries, such as, you know, gait and stuff like that. So check it out, guys. Try those drills. Let me know what you think. As always, we appreciate the share. Have an awesome day, guys.